Pablo Torre has another video that I want to watch, and it involves Riley Gaines. You know, that woman who was very pissed about, the trans stuff. Now, we're not here to talk about the trans stuff. We're not here to have a debate about the trans stuff. We're here for one reason and one reason only: to make fun of Riley Gaines. So we are locked in reaction phase. Let's do it. Ukraine does not have any bodies to send to the front. They're losing. I mean, do they not? I haven't really. I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to think it through. Ukraine definitely needs to end this conflict, for sure. The longer it prolongs, the more it helps Russia. But the Ukrainian people have made it very clear that they do not want to give up land to Russia. So we're in a weird place right now where they are willing to fight to the end for the most part. And you can understand that. If a country is trying to invade and take your sovereignty, you can understand that. Especially in territory that has been annexed from Russia, is going to be given back to Russia, as well as additional land is given to Russia. It's crazy stuff. But all right.
Thank you for making clear what Apple time actually means. And today, you are going to find out what this sound is.
Where's our beautiful...
The Donbass is Russian-speaking land. I mean, that's fine. It can be Russian-speaking land. It doesn't mean it's Russia. All right. A lot of people in Ukraine, from my knowledge, speak both languages.
Great swimmer. Gaines, where's Gaines? Come up here. Will you please come up here? Come up. This is a great champion. And she was beating everybody, and then
Riley Gaines probably hated tomboys for no reason. Hey man, them tomboys, what? Them tomboys. Man, the tomboy probably took her guy. Tomboy swoop in. He's like, bro, she just knows how to. You feel me? Better than you. You feel me? All right.
One day she looked over and said, "That's the largest human being I've ever seen."
This is really cool. I've never done anything like this before. I've never done a podcast before.
Oh my God. Well, okay. So
apologies in advance.
No. So I want to explain for our audience here. Let's get into it. I want to explain for our audience here that you, Madison, are joining us from where?
I'm in San Francisco. I'm in the Center for Investigative Reporting offices.
The Center for Investigative Reporting is, of course, the parent company.
Shout out Pablo Torre, bro. He is doing a lot of good work. I cover a lot, but obviously I'm not I want to start talking to a little bit more investigative reporting. I want to kind of get in the nitty gritty of investigative reporters. I usually talk to politicians and CEOs and like political scientists, right? We just talk politics, but sometimes we want to get into the juicy nitty gritty of what is going on in society. I need to talk to some investigative journalists. So if you're listening, hit me up in my email. Let's talk on the podcast.
We have Mother Jones, which is one of the most venerable journalistic institutions in America, has been that way for decades upon decades upon decades. And it's really cool to partner with you guys on a story that I have been trying to fit into our strange docket, because I think that this investigation that you did for us is the thing that has been lurking underneath the surface of like the most explosive topic in sports and politics for 4 years, 4 quite consequential years at the very least at this point?
Yeah, even more. 2020, I think, is when this all started, and it has been a wild ride, and I'm excited to dig into this part of it.
Yeah. So
Israeli media. What do you talk about, Bulletproof?
So this is, if nothing else, a profile. It's a profile of, I think, what might be the main character of this movement that has dominated American politics. So who is the face of this movement, Madison?
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
The poster child, the it girl, the Regina George of this movement is the 24-year-old who claps longer than anyone else at a White House ceremony in February during Hail to the Chief as Trump walked in. Riley Gaines.
Right there, like off to the right of just the center.
She just keeps on clapping.
of the frame in a resplendent white outfit is Riley Gaines.
She's got her real MAGA look going. She's got the full face of makeup, long, wavy blonde hair, and
You know, that's an interesting point. You notice how all these MAGA women look very similar? Did you notice that? And all of them get plastic surgery on their face? I'm just saying.
she's really become so recognizable over the last 3 years, at least if you're in the Fox News audience.
Thank you very much. This is a nice crowd, isn't it, huh?
Who
You've been
funds
waiting a
them?
long time for this.
Who funds who? Who funds who? What are you talking about? Who funds Pablo Torre? I don't know.
So have I. Actually, it was so ridiculous. But here we are.
So this is Donald Trump preparing to sign his executive order keeping men out of women's sports, a threat to defund schools that let trans girls play on the girls' team.
Which means that the girls who are assembled there in the front row, wearing their uniforms and their medals, these are the people that Donald Trump and Riley Gaines are saving. They're protecting them, these victims of the trans.
Who funds? I don't know who funds them. I don't care who funds them.
Movement.
Right. Donald Trump is here to protect women is the really clear message of this photo op.
And for people who don't know what Riley Gaines's lore is, her origin story, Donald Trump is very helpfully here to fill us in on the injustice that Riley Gaines suffered when she was a college swimmer.
The league forced her to share a spot on the podium with a male swimmer who took her trophy while the media celebrated this stolen glory. And Riley is just a tremendous athlete, and it was a very unfair situation. I watched it. A lot of people watched it. It was ridiculous, frankly. But I want to thank Riley. She really has been in the forefront. People that aren't that well versed in this would say that she was the leader. And great job, Riley. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Riley Gaines, you may also recall from the time that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez dunked on her because of the whole thing where she, actually just finished in 5th.
Yo, that's a crazy tweet. Whoa, AOC. Maybe if you channeled all this anger into swimming faster, you would have come in fifth. Yo, I did not see that. That's such a crazy tweet from AOC. Oh, that's actually funny as hell, bro. Oh my god, that's so funny. That is so hilarious. Yo, I didn't think AOC was so spicy. Okay. Okay, Riley never get yelled at in PE class. Hey, probably not. Hey, man, we all rock with AOC. Don't always agree with her politically, but, we're fans of AOC over here. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? You hear me?
Madison.
Yeah, she came in 5th. And
that's so funny.
In defense of Riley Gaines here, coming in 5th in the NCAA Division I National Women's Swimming Championship is a big deal if you're a college women's swimmer. It's the top meet. So people love to call her mediocre, make fun of her for coming in 5th, troll her, troll a troll, but it is.
That's actually an extremely fair point. Coming in 5th in a national competition, you actually probably should deserve credit for that. But it's still funny. AOC is a great person. AOC is a very good person.
It's a big deal to have swum this meet. And she very famously tied for 5th with one Leah Thomas.
And we can go back and forth, of course, about the competitive advantage debate and the question, the science therein. We've done episodes on that on this show. But the larger argument that platform, that literal platform, became politically was even more dire, right? I mean, the claim that Riley Gaines goes on to make, that this president goes on to make, is that female athletes are not only losing to the Leah Thomases of the world, the trans athlete, they're being victimized.
Brett Favre, what do you make of all these transgender athletes, men invading women's sports?
Trans invading sports. Trans infiltration of women's sports put women in actual danger.
Trans women movement is actually anti-woman.
100%, especially when it comes to sports, 100%.
Absolutely. You hear it all the time, the idea that trans women are, quote unquote, invading women's spaces and putting them at risk. It's been incredibly effective as far as changing policy. There are, last time I checked, 29 states that have gone ahead and banned trans women and trans girls from women's athletics. That's huge. That's obviously more than half the country. After this executive order that we just watched, we have the NCAA banning trans athletes, trans women specifically. We have the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee doing the same thing. It's really been a massive win for Riley Gaines and her allies on the policy side. And as far as public opinion goes, obviously the Republican Party has really banked on this issue to win elections and poured money into anti-trans advertising, a lot of it about sports.
But funny enough, like the thing that I want to do here, though, is actually introduce people to Riley Gaines. I actually want them to understand the story that
It is a talking point. I will say that they're kind of losing momentum for this. We've seen this in the recent special elections that there are a couple of different people that tried to use on the Republican side the trans talking points. But at this point, with how the trans backlash has been implemented, people are not really caring about it anymore. The whole trans stuff is very minor in terms of current conversations. I think a lot of the people have been purely focused on economics. So you crying about trans people is not working as a political strategy as much. And especially considering, at the very least, the trans sports debate is extremely complicated, very convoluted. I do think it's a very nuanced conversation, and I pretty much drew my lines in the sand. But the overcorrection regarding the trans stuff, where people are now banned to be in the military if they're trans, is insane to me. Someone can't be in the military and they're trans. Like, what? Why not? There's really no good arguments other than like this transphobic, you're less than human, so you should not be a part of society type of rhetoric. So it is quite disgusting at this point. It's very unfortunate. Yeah, right. All women stay at home, bro. It's the
she
that's true.
doesn't quite want to tell, but we had you investigate.
I mean, the cast of characters we are going to encounter today involves Simone Biles, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Orlando Magic, and Charlie Kirk.
Also,
yeah, most people don't care about the trans stuff anymore at this point. Really.
I've been promised spreadsheets, Madison. I've been promised tax forms.
There are a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of tax forms.
Oh, wait, what does that say?
It involves.
But we had you investigate.
I mean, the cast of characters we are going to encounter today involves Simone Biles, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Orlando Magic, and Charlie Kirk.
Also,
the Orlando Magic. What the fuck?
I've been promised spreadsheets, Madison. I've been promised tax forms.
There are a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of tax forms. Get ready.
This is my kind of episode. So this is also one of those episodes where I end up listening to an audiobook. And I do need to now share a bit of what I learned while listening to Swimming Against the Current by Riley Gaines.
Swimming Against the Current is about standing up for reality, facts, and common sense. It's my story of how I became a passionate advocate, not only for myself as a collegiate athlete, but for every woman whose future is at risk of being jeopardized.
One of the 24 people I talked to for this calls sports a gateway drug to the anti-trans movement.
Bulletproof. What are you talking about in my Twitch chat? What are you yapping about? What is going on there?
People start getting interested and getting hooked, thinking about some of the real and legitimate questions about the science of trans athletes. But as part of digging into that, they get sucked into this online sphere and this rhetoric that this is about sports, to immediately every woman's future is at risk from transgender women. That slide, that pivot, that's what really is Riley's essence, or the essence of her message.
I often think of like politics now as just like a storytelling contest. And so when I hear the story that Riley Gaines is telling in this book, it reminds me that the most helpful thing often when it comes to a movement like this is to find a victim to empathize with. And here you have a young girl born in Nashville, Tennessee in the year 2000.
And I tried it all.
You know what? That is a very good point. Politics really is just like effective storytelling. That's why anecdotal circumstances is so effective. Even though to help a nation, data should be more important. That's a very, very interesting point.
Softball, basketball, horseback riding, track. There wasn't a sport I didn't beg my parents to put me in. I was 4 years old when I started swimming.
And she's the daughter of
a former football player at Vanderbilt University who went on to play professionally in the NFL and who had multiple brothers who were also SEC athletes and NFL superstars.
Brad Gaines is currently running for Congress, so I have to say something about this NFL superstar line. this article, which is from the Philadelphia Inquirer sports columnist Phil Sheridan. To make room on the roster, the Eagles waived fullback Brad Gaines. He was in his first NFL camp at 28.
Look, when I eventually write my autobiography, my memoir.
Yo, that is so petty. Like, yeah, he was in the NFL, but like, was he really in the NFL? That's petty.
Memoirs, I too might turn my parents into superstar athletes. I do know that Riley Gaines herself, though, was like a 7-time state champion swimmer in high school, right? Like she was legit. This is a legitimate prospect.
Yeah, she was good. She qualified for the Olympic trials at 15.
There's a part of chapter 1 of the book also where she talks about how she winds up at the University of Kentucky, where a lot of her lore took place. And in 2016, she found herself with this decision to make.
It was time to choose a college where I could continue excelling in my athletic career.
And what she describes is this very fond memory of being almost relentlessly recruited by the head swimming coach at the University of Kentucky, who sold Riley Gaines at one point on attending a Kentucky basketball game.
Don't judge. This was when Kentucky men's basketball was actually good and not losing to St. Peter's Peacocks. Never in a million years did I think I'd actually fall in love with the school.
Oh, really?
Which, of course, I did. And that annoying coach who kept calling and emailing me, he became and still is one of my best friends.
The coach that became one of her best friends, as she calls him, the relentless swimming coach that recruited her, what was his name?
That coach was Lars Jorgensen. Riley calls him Coach Lars, so we can call him that too. He was a former college swimmer. He made it to the Olympics in 1988, came back coach D1 in Louisiana, Ohio, Tennessee. And by the time Riley got to Kentucky in 2018, her freshman year, he'd been head coach of the Wildcats there for 4 years. And they were doing great under him. They were, by all accounts, on the rise.
In the beginning of freshman year, he continually addressed me as a loft. I had no idea what this meant, and I never questioned it. Until one day, I mustered up the courage to ask. I was told it means lack of effing talent. Ah, cool, thanks.
We don't just have to take Riley's word for it that this was how Coach Lars operated. I talked to 3 of her former teammates at Kentucky, 2 of them who spoke on condition of anonymity because they know that Riley's fans and followers might go after people. But one of them agreed to go on the record.
My name is Trinity Ward. I swam at University of Kentucky from 2019 to 2022.
And also, she was brave enough to speak to us on camera.
Trinity started at UK a year after Riley did. And by the time she's getting recruited at UK, she's seeing its intense training program. She's seeing all the resources that the school puts into the program.
It was really pitched as, and rightfully so, this program where, you know, you almost could have this rags to riches story of somebody that came in as a decent swimmer. And all of a sudden, after going through this training program, dropping, 10.
I'm gonna let get beaten by trans man unfair and like let my daughter's shit at sports. I mean, yeah, the conversation regarding trans stuff in sports, I think at this point, I mean, I've said it pretty clearly that I do think it's, when it comes down to it, men, women, when it comes to stuff that can make money, college, and about like high level high school, it just should be separate. I think it gets way too complicated in terms of the minutia of the biological signifiers, personally, that at this point it's just not worth really kind of focusing on. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of the sports debate. There's just too much money into it.
10 to 20 seconds sometimes, and really just improving a lot and becoming an all-star, making the All-American team, becoming an SEC A finalist, qualifying for NCAAs, medaling and finaling at NCAAs, which was really inspiring to me. But every person I'm talking to back home, outside of swimming at my school, is like, you're living the dream. You know, you're living like the American dream.
She became a specialist in the 100-meter butterfly, and this is what she trains for. And as she's really getting started, she says that Coach Lars reminded her of the coach from Rocky.
Right. This is the guy who says, you're going to eat light and you're going to crap thunder.
And you're going to crap thunder. You're going to become a...
Yeah, a shit talker.
So now we're getting into 2020, and Riley Gaines, again, is on the team at the same time. She's a year older than Trinity Ward, and it sounds like things start escalating.
As Trinity started spending more time on this team, she said that the women's swim program revealed what she called some darker sides.
There definitely were some darker sides to that, like, you know, doing that pushing in an intense way that was not productive, like full on, you know, yelling at somebody, where it was like, hey, like, now that
what Trinity and her 2 teammates all described to me was a culture set by Coach Lars at the top that went beyond talking, beyond mercurial, The way these three swimmers talked about it, and all of them were on the team at the same time as Riley Gaines, it was a place where they felt like their confidence was destroyed.
And like seeing someone cry or just become very upset or just say like, oh, I feel so worthless, that's really tough to see. And
they talked about how if they didn't do well at a meet, they would be punished. They would have to do punishment swims.
Like all the coaches left the pool deck and we were told to just swim and don't stop for 2 hours.
All three of the teammates told me stories about how Coach Lars would try to force them to practice when they had real injuries or were seriously.
Yeah, this coach sounds like a piece of shit. Like, what the fuck?
Sick. Trinity says Lars didn't believe in days off. And on the swim team, this is pretty clear that a lot of these practices that were supposed to be voluntary under NCAA rules weren't. The NCAA actually suspended Jorgensen for 3 years for going over limits on practice hours.
The NCAA literally requires days off. There are all these rules that are strict about practice hours in season versus the off season. But you're describing an ecosystem where there's a very powerful coach who is making them do things that they're actually not supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and they would talk about depression being super common, a lot of behavior that looked like disordered eating. They said that Coach Lars pressured them or their teammates to lose extreme amounts of body fat down to 10 or 12%, which can be in the unhealthy range. They said that he would make fun of other teammates for being fat. And these are, let me remind you, D1 swimmers.
It's like, okay, this person is one of the best swimmers on her team. And you're saying you're making jokes about her being fat and not needing to eat cookies. Like, I'm a worse swimmer than her. So that must mean that I need to lose weight too. The way that he talked about and treated weight was just not normal.
And they had all of this sort of insecurity that they described based on what they were going through with Coach Lars on the team.
And I'm not going to sit here and.
Jesus Christ. Now, they're like aggressive coach, Fatty. Yeah. Aggressive coaching is, I mean, there could be value to it, but, bullying is not great. But he also produced results. So I don't know, man. Sounds like a dickhead, though.
Say that, like, Kentucky swimming is a source of like all my mental health problems and why I, struggled with food in college and still sometimes do now to this day. But I know that if I hadn't been in that environment, I wouldn't have had a lot of the thoughts or struggles that I did. I can't think of a single teammate I had where I'm like, wow, that person was like really confident in themselves and their body. They spoke about themselves very well. I can't think of anyone. And that's where it's like, this is nuts.
Which is to say that this is not the way that Riley Gaines characterized her swimming experience in Swimming Against the Current.
No, you wouldn't get any of this if you read Riley's memoir. She does call some of his comments, quote, utter savagery, end quote. But she says that this was for the purpose of motivating them, that this was just his coaching style, and it was all to make them better.
Lars's goal was to enforce a positive and healthy team culture, knowing that it would, in turn, bring athletic success. His mindset about winning wasn't solely focused on swimming. It wasn't just about being the top swimmers in the nation. It was about being women of great character and students who excel in the classroom as well.
Riley didn't respond to my multiple requests for interviews, detailed questions about all this stuff. Her lawyer didn't respond to my questions either. And we're going to get to what the University of Kentucky had to say about this.
But this program at the time, if you go through the public records here, it's not just the story of like a hard-ass coach who's running things and being demanding of his players. It seems like there is a depth of the dysfunction that is also worth citing here.
Yeah, this is...
I remember seeing a kid getting shouted at in Germany who was getting coached for tennis, just brutal. The kid was about 8-year-old. Yeah, it's just like, I understand, nothing to gain from lying about eating cookies. I understand the idea of like very aggressive coaching. I understand its necessity. I mean, I was in the military. I went to boot camp. I was in Marine Corps boot camp. So I was getting yelled at consistently. I get it. But at the same time, there's a time and place. And I think based off like studies and different kind of perceived experiences that have been shared, it's very clear that this is not effective. It ruins people more so than often. Like the amount of people in boot camp, I knew people who were committing, SA to themselves, not SA, that are committing to themselves, right? So this can just ruin people's mental health. And there's also doesn't really help people, and it makes them hate their life. It's like this is a sport. Yes, there's a lot of money to it, but what's the point if you hate what you're doing, right?
A stack of papers from one of the investigations into the University of Kentucky swim team at this time, and is a 2019 sexual harassment investigation, not into Coach Lars, but into his assistant coach, Chip Klein. This investigation started after a bunch of swimmers had mentioned concerns about Klein in their exit interviews, so the university started looking into it.
Thank you for your service, no hate, but Crash Out, why didn't you show up and confront him last night? Yes, for all haters to come forward. Who are you talking about, Joseph? I don't know who you're referring to. Who I don't know who you're talking about. Paul Scholes, one of the best soccer players of all time, never got shouted out. He just wanted to impress his dad. That's all he wanted. Hey man, respect it. Like everybody can't work under that culture, that type of style, right? Some people can and will grow from it, but most people can't. Andrew, I don't watch Andrew's content. I had no idea he was asking about that. So I was only watching that one whatever. Appreciate the straw hat flag shout. I was only watching one that whatever thing because the clip was going viral about him crashing out about the woman attacking his wife. I don't watch Andrew content, so I don't really follow what Andrew does. So I had no idea that was happening last night. So that was about it. I'm trying to get in the space a little bit more in terms of being involved in these conversations. Right. I appeared on Wick's panel recently for a little cameo to share my opinions. But, we'll see. Still don't like Andrew though. Well, we'll see. We'll see how everything plays out. Let's see if I decide to go in the debate space, the political debate space.
And after going through their process by what they call a preponderance of the evidence, which is basically like more likely than not, this is true.
I agree.
Klein had allegedly touched a swimmer's leg under her towel at a meet, forced that same swimmer to hug him.
What?
Allegedly touched a, which is basically like more likely than not, this is true. Klein a preponderance of the evidence, which is started after a bunch of swimmers had mentioned concerns about, and is a 2019 sexual harassment investigation.
It's all things and being demanding of his players. It seems like there is a depth of the dysfunction that is also worth citing here.
Yeah, this is a stack of papers from one of the investigations into the University of Kentucky swim team at this time, and is a 2019 sexual harassment investigation, not into Coach Lars, but into his assistant coach, Chip Klein. This investigation started after a bunch of swimmers had mentioned concerns about Klein in their exit interviews, so the university started looking into it. And after
the debate space is no history. I do think I personally don't like debate. Personally, I'm not a big fan of debate, not because I'm not good at it, but mostly because I just don't think it's effective. Personally, I think debate is more of an entertainment showcase to create a like show for people, right? That's all I think debate is. When I talk about politics personally, I talk about politics in substantive ways. That's my focus. That's why in my podcast I focus on political solutions. I've talked about so many political solutions. I've talked with like politicians and CEOs, and I have all those books back there are people who have political solutions who sent me their books. So I talk about very important. I agree. Knowing history is important. That is a very key thing. That's why I had to research history to learn about the Israel-Palestinian conflict. But yeah, I just don't like personally. I know I need to be in the debate space to really gain of notoriety, but I like genuinely think debate gets in the way of like real politics. Personally, Andrew isn't for everyone, but I would say you must pay attention to his position. A lot of people clip him out of context. You just said clip. That was a 2-hour plus debate. Oh, I didn't watch that to like learn his position. I've watched other stuff to learn his position, and I hate his position personally. I was just watching that to laugh. I'm gonna be honest. It is a rocky road bullet for sure. It's 100%. It is entertaining, but it's also a place to exchange and defend your positions. Yeah, it really does test you in the world. It does test you. I have pretty concrete beliefs, and I can argue very, very well. I'm very articulate too, but it's not a dream job. Who says I can't wait to be some kind of Yeah, I don't go down the Andrew Wilson trail. It's exhausting. Yeah, I'm not. I don't really plan to do that. I prefer to kind of create my own path in the political landscape. That's what I'm trying to attempt to do. But it's very obvious that there is a very specific way to do things. Which one do you agree with? Forced. I completely disagree with forced doctrine. I completely disagree with that thing he was referring to. I remember I did a clip recently. It actually did extremely good numbers on TikTok. I think it has like over 60,000 views where he was debating, I forget her name, it's like Nana Mia or something. And then he tried to compare, I forget, this so long ago. He was trying to talk about how the I don't remember. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember right off rip. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, there's things that I disagree with when it comes to Andrew Wilson. But yeah, it's funny. Says I can't wait to be some kind of term is gross. Yeah, I don't want to be a debater. Politics is supposed to be something that is productive, right? Politics is supposed to improve society. That's the purpose of politics. You understand it's a descriptor, not an ought. You sounds like you're an Andrew Wilson fan, considering you're using the terms descriptor and oughts. But shout out. I'm not hating on you. I'm not hating on you. I don't know you to hate on you. So this is what it is. I just when he was using the statement in whatever context he was using it based off the conversation he was having, I was pretty comfortable based off the emotional state and the way I was arguing it that there was a visceral disagreement on how he was characterizing what he was characterizing. All that to say that I don't remember the specific details because it happened so long ago, but the memory is pretty much coincides with a very clear disagreement and oppositional viewpoint from whatever happened, right? So that's just me trying to articulate that I don't fucking remember that I don't remember everything that happened regarding that. Forced doctrine sounds evil. Forced doctrine, I don't remember everything he says. Like I said, it was so long ago. I'm not hating on either. Just asking if you truly understand. Because also that's an appeal to emotion based. I don't remember. It's happened a long ago. I just remember that I disagreed. Was he a Zionist? Is Andrew Wilson a Zionist? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't remember. I haven't seen him. It's the stance that might makes not Mike's right. Based. Very based. Very, very based. All right, let's continue.
Going through their process by what they call a preponderance of the evidence, which is basically like more likely than not, this is true. Klein had allegedly touched a swimmer's leg under her towel at a meet, forced that same swimmer to hug him before letting her enter the team room, made sexual comments about her and about other swimmers, things like comparing their bodies to meat, things like saying, quote, with a butt like that, she ought to be a good swimmer.
And so what is the consequence?
The crazy thing for a coach to say about women, by the way. You have a good one, man. Truly know. Hey, wish you the best. Oh yeah. It's all civil. You came into this stream in good faith. It's all civil. We all good. No issue here. I'm willing to engage with anybody in good faith. There's certain people I think are evil. That's like, probably should not have a conversation with them. That's
What this investigation finds. What does the school do in response?
Yeah, so while it's investigating, the school puts Klein on a suspension. That suspension stays in effect for the whole rest of the year, and then they decline to renew his contract at the end of the year. And at the same time, they also temporarily suspended Coach Lars himself for 6 days for failing to report what he knew about Klein's conduct.
And so we should also say here that he requested comment from Chip Klein. And Chip Klein, the assistant in question who worked for Lars Jorgensen, Coach Lars said, in part, quote, I choose not to respond to this request out of respect for what was supposed to be a confidential process, end quote. And I do want to return, by the way.
I'll be honest. There is no defense when you do not speak up of wrongdoing. Don't get me wrong, it would really hurt me if a close friend of mine did something wrong and I have to speak out against them, but I will. I will. I was going to share some, but I'm probably not going to say it. But yeah, it's just gotta get past the nepotism. You feel me?
To
Gotta get
Coach
past
Lars himself in just a bit here. But the question of, again, storytelling. Why wasn't this stuff in Riley Gaines's book? It raises a question of that itself being a conspicuous choice now that you see it through this lens.
Right. I mean, it would suggest that there might be more serious problems in women's sports than trans people.
The version of this story and the version of Riley Gaines, right, that continues to go viral online to the point that she is this leading figure in the Trump MAGA Republican movement. How different is the person that these teammates see on television from the Riley Gaines that they swam with back in 2019, 2020?
It's really clear that Riley has gone through a significant evolution. Trinity, who was friends with her at the time, says that Riley in college was really different.
I gotta Google that. Can being called bald be sexual harassment? All right, let's look into this. Common with baldness and work is equivalent to remarking the size of a woman's breast. A panel of 3 employment judges rule. The decision relates to calm prop against the blah blah blah. So this happened in Europe. Claiming that he was a victim of sexual harassment due to comments about his lack of very clearly being called a bald cunt. Hey, he's kind of spitting. Hey, we believe in gender equality. If I can't talk about your body, you can't talk about mine. He's kind of cooking.
Different than her super Christian, super conservative public persona these days. And according to my 31-page timeline of Riley's life, this is 2021 after Trump left office. They took a 2-hour drive together up to another teammate. That Riley in college was really different than her super Christian, super conservative public persona these days.
2019, 2020.
It's really
on television from the Riley Gaines that they swam with back in 2019, 2020.
It's really clear that Riley has gone through a significant evolution. Trinity, who was friends with her at the time, says that Riley in college was really different than her super Christian, super conservative public persona these days.
That means she was fucking a lot. That's what that means. That's what that means.
And according to my 31-page timeline of Riley's life, this is
God made perfect heads and the rest he covered with hair. Bald is the truest look. That's God's perfect look.
It's 2021 after Trump left office. They took a 2-hour drive together up to another teammate's Riley's life. This is 2020. And according to my 31-page timeline of Riley's life, this is 2021 after Trump left office. Her super Christian, super conservative public persona these days. And according to my 31-page timeline of Riley's life, this is 2021 after Trump left office. They took a 2-hour drive together up to another teammate's family lake house.
This is so funny looking back on. I drove a car of people and like Riley was in my front seat. We talked the 2 hours there and back. And
Aaron's a wrongdoing. I have to scroll up in the chat because it looks weird on my end where anytime that you message on Twitter, it's all the way on the top. So I have to scroll up. It doesn't. It's all weird. Inheritance of wrongdoing should be called out. I agree.
We both have conservative Christian upbringings. Like kind of like talked about that and shared just about like dads that were definitely more like old school. And her making a comment and just being like, yeah, like I'm not like a diehard Trumper. And that really like tracked with everything. I mean, to me, like that made sense and tracked with what I had seen. Like Riley was a very down to earth, very practical person. As a queer person that swam on that team, I never was like, wow, I feel like Riley's going to hate crime me today, or like Riley makes me feel unsafe.
I am so grateful to see President Trump's quick and decisive action to.
So she changed the moment the money started showing up. She changed her whole outlook. That's weak moral character right there. That's tough to see, man. I probably will end up going bald, unfortunately.
Hold his campaign promise and protect female athletes.
If you told me 4 years ago that Riley Gaines was going to be the spokesperson for the anti-trans movement, be speaking with Trump, I'd be like, what? You're crazy. Like, she doesn't even actually like him.
And, when you hear that, and you even make allowances for the
All
fact
the
that all of
money.
us, I assume both of us are probably different in college than we are now, right? It does make me want to really understand, like, what the happened. The story here, like, it takes a turn. And where...
I'm trying to think of me back in college versus me now. I'm actually not that different. I think my moral foundation has always been pretty strong, though. So maybe I'm an unfair comparison, but ultimately, I don't think I'm that different in terms of character compared to college. The only thing that I've learned from college, so the only difference that I wish I was like in college that I am now is I'm much more mature in dealing with my, sexual promiscuity. I'm much more mature in that retrospect. I always say, I'm not one for regrets, but if I had one, there's one woman in college, man. She might have been the one, man. She might have been the one. And I fucked it up. And I fucked it up because I was an immature fucking 19-year-old. But that's probably it.
That takes us seems like it's worthy of, again, a return to your 31-page timeline about her life.
Yeah, there's definitely a transformation that happens at the time that Riley graduates. There's a radicalization that happens, and we see her become someone who's unrecognizable.
Yeah, it happens irrelevant. That happens.
So I take us back now to the part of your 31-page timeline of the life of Riley Gaines, where the origin story that she has sanctioned is about to take place. Because here is Riley Gaines and here is Coach Lars at this sporting event at the crux of American politics, the 2022 NCAA Women's Swimming Championships, which is not only the most controversial sporting event in America's recent history, it's also the one that I don't think people have ever actually seen.
Oh, no chance.
It's the final in the women's 500-yard freestyle.
And you can see
Definitely did not
feel
watch this before.
the tension in this building.
Okay, so we're in Atlanta. This is Georgia Tech's pool. It's March. Outside the facility, there are anti-trans protesters because the most notorious star in women's college swimming at the time is Leah Thomas.
Transgender swimmer Leah Thomas breaking barriers and records. But in a new article, Sports Illustrated calls the college senior the most controversial athlete in America.
And tonight, controversy continues to swirl around the University of Pennsylvania transgender swimmer Leah Thomas, whose continued participation in and dominance of women's swimming prompted the NCAA to issue a rule change.
Record-breaking transgender Penn swimmer Leah Thomas will be allowed to compete in the Ivy League championships.
Leah Thomas was a swimmer on the University of Pennsylvania men's team for 3 years. She transitioned during college, and then COVID came around. She took a year off, and by the time she came back, she was eligible for the women's team under NCAA policy, which at the time let trans women compete after being on testosterone suppressants for 12 months. But there was a problem once she came back and started competing on the women's team. She was winning.
I do remember, as we were training for NCAAs, people being like, oh my gosh, is she going to be there? Is she going to compete?
One of the swimmers who I talked to agreed to go on tape on the condition that we modulate her voice. She was actually there at the NCAA 2022 championship. And she says that the women on her team were obsessing over Thomas.
Is she going to be in our locker room? I'm going to look at her when we're in our locker room.
So was Riley part of this buzz?
She was being such a bitch about the whole thing. But I just know that her and Lars and some of the other coaches would just talk about how disgusting it was and unfair, and they just couldn't believe it was happening, and they didn't want to be in the pool or around her and all of this. Just kind of stuff like that.
Leah Thomas pulling away over the final 150 meters. Had to work for it.
And so Leah's first race, by the way, was the 500-yard freestyle, which Riley Gaines was not competing in. You can actually just see Leah pulling away at the end to win this one. Not dominant, but a victory.
It wasn't a particularly fast time to win the 500 free. It was a notably slow winning time for the 500 free in the past 10 years. So people were acting insane over this. She'd gone this jaw-dropping, Katie Ledecky rivaling time, and that's just not what happened.
It's the 200-yard freestyle.
Interesting. I mean, I kind of already knew that was part of the conversation, in the sense that the overall performance, I think, other than I believe like powerlifting, is not like drastically above, but it's still tough because of the innate advantage biologically. You can't get us that when they change the rules. Yeah, blame the NCAA. It's all their fault, to be honest. The NCAA helped Donald Trump win the presidency. It's all their fault.
But as for the race that did drop jaws over time, the race that did launch the anti-trans athlete movement we've been talking about, that one was not the 500-yard freestyle. It was this. It was the 200-yard freestyle, which is where Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines are in the pool at the same time. And I just got to note that this is, in fact, Riley Gaines' best event, the one that she's most comfortable swimming. And this time capsule that we're watching here, while it is remarkable from the larger historical, sociological perspective, as a race, it's pretty uneventful.
Taylor Ruck from Stanford is winning the whole time, wire to wire.
And in the 200-yard freestyle, it's a wire-to-wire win for Taylor Ruck.
Yeah, Taylor Ruck blows away the field, wins easily, and coming in 5th place with the same exact time of 1 minute and 43.40 seconds, as you can see on the leaderboard right here, are Riley Gaines and Leah Thomas.
I didn't realize they tied. I did not know that. Interesting. Riley's like, how dare this piece of garbage tie with me? Oh my gosh.
We see her time come in and we're like, okay, like 5th, that's not what she wanted, but that's the highest she's ever placed at NCAA. She has to be happy. She had a time, but that's the highest she's ever gotten. And then I remember looking over and we were like this isn't good.
And the thing that happens next is where you begin to glimpse the familiar version of the story that we know. On the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's website, they publish an interview with Riley Gaines. And the headline of this article, Madison, is what?
I left there with no trophy. NCAA female swimmer who tied for 5th with trans athlete says officials put Leah Thomas ahead of her.
Right. And so now you see the trophy. You see the focus on how the NCAA had an official that insisted that Leah Thomas get the 5th place trophy to hold on the podium, meaning that Riley Gaines had to hold the 6th place trophy, which is not as, I guess, 5th placey in terms of what it felt like in her hand. She would.
To be fair, I'll be pretty pissed about that too. Why the fuck am I holding the 6th place trophy? We tied. We had the same fucking time. I mean, it's very obvious they did that purely because of PR and publicity. NCAA caused all of it. It's all the NCAA's fault. They ruined everything.
Get the 5th place trophy in the mail as a result. And this story keeps on getting printed and reprinted. And it's the media coverage that defined the debate.
It is the story that doesn't die, Pablo. You know, in that first Daily Wire article, she says, I am in full support of her, in full support of her transition and her swimming career and everything like that. Because there's no doubt that she works hard too, that she's just abiding by the rules that the NCAA put in place.
I mean, what that is that's the Riley Gaines who gave her queer teammate a...
Like Riley said, it's all the NCAA's fault.
Right.
That's her. That's the starting point for Riley Gaines here.
And after the Daily Wire, naturally, in the sequence here, comes an interview on Right Wing Talk Radio with Clay Travis.
We're talking to Riley Gaines, University of Kentucky senior swimmer who competed against Leah Thomas, transgender swimmer at the NCAA championships. Riley, what is the process like? And I believe I saw you comment on this in a Daily Wire article.
What if Leah Thomas was applauded to make women swim better? What if the NCAA created Leah Thomas to get Donald Trump elected? What if that was the case? What if this is all a ploy from the NCAA to make Donald Trump president?
Do you guys share dressing rooms? Do you share locker rooms with a biological male who identifies as a woman in advance of the competitions or after the competitions?
Right. So the meet this last week was an all-female meet, and so there wasn't even a male locker room opportunity because there are no, males on deck. And so going into the meet, we were all curious what the situation would be, and so we were just told that we could all use that locker room, which is, not a norm, sharing locker rooms like that. And so it was a bit shocking that, that was allowed. That's a whole different issue within itself. And so I would say we were all extremely surprised and, uncomfortable with that because there are girls who that's not something they would agree to doing, to consent to. And so it just seems like.
So sorry to cut you off here, but I just want to.
You do see a roadmap there for what the framework of this event ends up becoming.
Right. You get Clay Travis in a conversation about sexual assault and consent.
I just want to build on this a little bit. So you have a biological man who is allowed to come into the locker room that you guys are in, preparing to compete, getting ready to swim, and he is using the same locker room as you guys are? And if so, what is the reaction in the locker room? Because historically, if a man walks into a women's locker room, I mean, that's a crime.
And you can hear how Riley's tone starts to change a little bit.
Right. I think the NCAA, did make it seem like it was something that, we'll just all share locker rooms. But, there's so many girls who, even have faced sexual assault, and this kind of thing can be traumatic on just so many different levels. And so
the whole misgendering stuff even aside, right? We're talking just about the narrative here, the storytelling contest here, and sexual assault coming up, which again brings up this image, this template.
Yeah, it's very clear that this was blown out of proportion for monetary gain. Like, we're being honest, based off how they're characterizing Riley, this was not as serious as a situation as it made it seem, but it's just a situation looking back. They created more emotional weight on it than there actually was after conditional or contextualizing it in the worst framework possible. It's just, she made her bag though, right? Riley's famous base.
For how a trans athlete is not merely someone who's going to take your trophy from you, take your scholarship from your kids. They're going to be predators preying on your daughters.
Right.
And so just the encounter, by the way, just the sheer interaction in the locker room between Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines. I do want to fact check that.
Yeah, so obviously I wasn't there. You weren't there. Leah Thomas declined an interview request, understandably. Riley didn't get back to me. But I did talk to not just the anonymous swimmer we heard from earlier, but also 2 other swimmers who competed at the NCAAs, 2 of whom say they changed with Leah there in the locker room. And they were pretty eager to help me fact check this. Riley's teammate, who we'll hear from now, refers to the locker room as the bathroom situation.
NCAA's is only women's and then it's only men's. So they open up all of the bathrooms to the athletes. So there's no men's restroom. It's just, this is the women's restroom.
She says that in the locker room, Leah was just changing in a corner, wrapped in a towel, keeping to herself.
We're all very comfortable being naked. People don't usually cover themselves with towels to change or go in bathroom stalls or anything like that. But any of the times I would see her in there, she's wrapped in her towel. She's turned around, not facing anyone. I felt bad for her. I was like, she didn't ask to be put in this environment with these people and treated this way. She just wanted to come and swim.
That story is not the one that we hear on Fox News. And then Riley Gaines is on with none other than Tucker.
Which makes complete sense, to be honest. The average situation in that, of course, there's not going to be some weird circumstance where the person is just peeping on all the women. Of course, it's going to be uncomfortable. Of course, they're going to be in the corner. Obviously, that's the normal human interaction in a situation so uncomfortable especially when you're outcasted. But victim mentality makes money, bro. We all, we all been in a locker room. We all doing our thing, bro. The people who are uncomfortable or unsure of themselves, they're in the corner doing their own thing. That's just normal.
Tucker Carlson.
I have such an amazing support system at the University of Kentucky, whether that be from the athletic director all the way down to my head coach, Lars Jorgensen. But just speaking for them, it's just totally wrong. And I know I can't speak for everyone, but I am almost certain I'm speaking for a large majority of female athletes that this is just not okay and it's not fair. And
there's the name check of Coach Lars as part of this amazing support system that she is describing.
And really, really quickly, she starts getting involved in politics. She actually goes to the Kentucky State Legislature trying to get lawmakers to override the governor's veto of a trans sports ban, and they do within a month of swimming against Leah Thomas. So it's just this immediate transition.
And just a reminder here, we're in the middle of a midterm election year. And so now we're months removed from the NCAAs. And Riley Gaines gets put into campaign ads speaking for girls all across America.
I trained from an early age, giving it my all to achieve my dream.
We see her in a campaign ad for Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul.
But Rand Paul is not afraid to fight for fairness for women and girls, and that's why I'm supporting him.
We see her in an ad for then Republican Governor.
I haven't looked too much into Rand Paul, but Rand Paul seems so anti-Trump nowadays. I'm surprised that this was
of South Dakota, Kristi Noem.
Kristi Noem stood up for us, passing the toughest law in the country.
she sucks.
country to defend female sports.
Who also happens to be, by the way,
She also shoots dogs. She also. I just wanted to throw that in there just to shit on her. She also shoots dogs and goats. I just want to put that out there.
Secretary of Homeland Security in charge of ICE.
Mm-hmm. Here's Herschel Walker.
But my senior year, I was forced to compete against a biological
Herschel
man.
Walker.
That's
That's a
unfair and
name.
wrong.
A man won the swimming title that belonged
Herschel Walker is CTE, bro. I'm just saying.
to a woman, and Senator Warnock voted to let it happen.
Warnock's afraid to stand up for female athletes.
Herschel Walker stands up for what's right.
By the way, this ad came
Herschel
out
Walker is a
after
fucking
allegations of
moron.
domestic violence from Herschel Walker's son. Then by December of 2022, I think this is when like a lot of America gets to see Riley Gaines for the first time. She's really breaking through when she gets called on stage at CPAC.
This is the Conservative Political Action Conference, at which none other than Donald Trump personally summons onto the stage, quote,
Where's our beautiful, great swimmer? Gaines, where's Gaines? Come up here. Will you please come up here? Come up. This is a great champion. And she was beating everybody, and then one day she looked over and said, that's the
Facts.
largest human being I've ever seen.
Riley Gaines' timing
Loves
is
that Fox
really
money.
good. Like, she is coming in after 14 states have already passed these trans sports bans. Like, this isn't a brand new cause. This has already been a cause that Republican politicians have been pushing in the states for a couple of years now. It's been catching on. It's been working. But as you know, Pablo, like the problem that they have is that they just don't have a lot of trans athletes to point to. There are very, very few of them. So how do you see that this is a real problem? It's extremely convenient to go point at somebody like Riley Gaines, who can say, hi, I was a victim of this, who can go sit in the Kentucky legislature and say, look, there is a real victim of these policies. And that's, I think, why her story breaks through.
Yeah, there's aren't enough examples.
That's very fair. Riley made it seem like, oh yeah, Lisa is destroyed me. We had the same score. Sounds like she was just petty that Leah Thomas got to hold the 5th place trophy. That's all it sounds like to me. That literally is all it sounds like to me. Oh, Leah Thomas got to hold the 5th place trophy. How dare she? I'm gonna ruin all trans people. Jesus. Okay. All right.
Examples of female athletes, period, who are losing to trans athletes because there aren't that many trans athletes in general. And so you get Riley Gaines testifying not just at the Virginia state legislature, but at the Kansas state legislature and the North Carolina state legislature, all for these anti-trans bills that are being, again, put in front of these voting bodies.
The NCAA forced female swimmers to share a locker room with Thomas. A 6'4", 22-year-old male equipped with and exposing male genitalia.
Got a whole script. Expose male genitalia when they're dressing up in the corner. Fake ass tears. Trying to play victim. You play victim, you get that money. That money on.
In a room full of vulnerable, undressed women.
And in each one of those
Vulnerable women.
cases, what you see is that it's not just the Leah Thomas story.
From 18 to 22-year-old girls who were exposed to male body parts.
She, this single data point, Riley Gaines, is now this avatar for all girls everywhere
Our experiences as D1 swimmers, it's not unique.
who are in danger of quote unquote men, these predators in women's sports. And she goes on the road. She continues to go on the road. I mean, she's giving speeches at college campuses. I mean, it's not unlike Charlie Kirk.
The events that she does on college campuses, some of them are actually sponsored by Turning Point USA, the conservative youth organization founded by Charlie Kirk. And they popularized the model of sending right-wing provocateurs to go speak on college campuses and then making a lot of content out of it and really trying to make like political hay when students come out to.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk was definitely I guess people like Crowder too, were definitely a pioneer of creating content by embarrassing college students. They definitely were. Like, there's no doubt about that. It's a smart tactic. Regardless, Charlie Kirk is a piece of shit. We all know this, but it's definitely a smart tactic.
Protest.
In 2023, with the 1-year anniversary of the NCAA championships approaching now, that relatively boring race that we watched on ESPN earlier in the episode, Riley Gaines goes on the podcast of the late Charlie Kirk himself.
The NCAA allowed us as female athletes to, not even just allowed, they encouraged us as female athletes to participate in Leah Thomas's sexual arousement and Leah Thomas's fetish.
And you can hear.
What? We went from Leah just changing in the corner to Leah just holding a 5th place trophy to now there's a sexual predation happening here. I remember my stances back in the day, and after really thinking about it and kind of looking at it in this lens, I mean, my stance regarding trans athletes has not changed. I just feel sorry for Leah Thomas. Like, she did nothing. She followed the rules because the NCAA wanted Trump to be president. All right, I'm gonna stop pushing that conspiracy theory. It's all the NCAA's fault. But Leah Thomas did nothing. She was just swimming. It's like, bro, Jesus Christ. All these lies told about you, and you're just taking it. There's haymakers right on the chin, right on that. Hey man, that estrogen's not gonna protect you. No, let me chill. Let me chill. All right, come on. That's crazy, bro. I feel bad for her though, for sure. It's just ridiculous.
In this Charlie Kirk podcast at this time, just how much it's been dialed up, the extremism and the outward transphobia.
And again, I blame the decline of American men. This never should have been, someone should have just took care of it the way we used to take care of things in the 1950s or 60s. Yeah, I mean, look, Thomas should be institutionalized.
Institutionalized? You send her to an insane asylum? What? For what? I agree. She was just following the rules, doing her thing.
And should be given some help, obviously. You should not be exposing yourself to other women. You're a freak. You're a voyeur. It should be illegal. Okay, and by the way...
And it goes on, obviously, but you can see already, like, it's just, I would say it's profoundly fucked up, right? Like, the way in which you're now alleging criminality, not like sports disadvantage.
Yeah, Riley Gaines is a piece of shit, huh? She's creating a whole fucking narrative off of this. And it seems like, based off the contextual clues, a false narrative. Just because she didn't get to hold the 5th place trophy. You know what? That AOC joke is cooking crazy. Hey, man, maybe you should have trained a little harder. You know what I'm saying? You would have got to hold that 5th place trophy and none of this would have happened. Jesus fuck.
But like actual criminality here from these athletes who are trying to compete.
We have fully turned the corner here from this is about fairness in women's sports to actually starting to allege that this is a kind of sexual assault. This is some of the most extreme, perverse, anti-trans talking points that you're going to find anywhere on the internet. And it's moving from Charlie Kirk's podcast to around the same time an appearance on Fox News.
We did not give our consent. They did not ask for our consent. But in that locker room, we turned around and there's a 6'4" biological man dropping his pants and watching us undress. And we're exposed to male genitalia. And so that to me was worth.
She's just making shit up now. Making shit up. She got the bag to be a fucking liar. She got a bag.
Just on the competition piece. Not even probably a year, 2 years ago, this would have been considered some form of sexual assault, voyeurism.
And that rhetoric there, like the actual equating of being a trans athlete competing and changing in a locker room to some form of sexual assault, to quote Riley Gaines just then. This is how we get to June of this year, where there's this other wildly viral story because Riley Gaines decides to post to her now more than 1.6 million followers on X, the video of Simone Biles testifying to Congress about the horror of being abused by USA Gymnastics team doctor Larry Nassar.
I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse.
And what Riley Gaines posts here in this split screen side-by-side thing that she does on this tweet, where on the left, it's the video of Simone Biles, and on the right, it's a screenshot of a tweet by Simone Biles that called Riley Gaines a bully. I mean, it's just hard to evade the extreme.
I remember that when that happened on Twitter too. I remember that Simone was cooking her. And after getting the full context, she actually experienced abuse. Now we're lying about being a victim and comparing abuse stories? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Yo, Riley's delusional. But she got the bag. Nassar was the worst. Teleprompter for sure. Is that the coach for the gymnast scandal? Is that what
Nature
his name
of the
is?
argument that she's now officially making.
Yeah, and Simone Biles was tweeting this in response to Riley misgendering a high school softball player. Riley's caption on that tweet was, quote, Simone Biles when she had to endure a predatory man versus Simone Biles when other girls have to endure predatory men, end quote. So when Riley Gaines is saying predatory men in this tweet, she's putting trans women in women's sports on the same spectrum as Larry Nassar. Like, that's what she's doing here. And not only is she saying that they're men, she's saying that if they participate in women's sports, that's a kind of abuse.
Oh, the equivalent she's making there is that Larry Nassar, again, responsible for the sexual assault and predation of more than 100 athletes. That is very similar to what Riley Gaines experienced when she lost to a trans athlete and tied for 5th at the NCAA swimming championships.
And after all,
facts. Nassar is equivalent to Leah Thomas holding a 5th place trophy. What the yo? These MAGA people are fucking insane. Is just the worst people just become MAGA, huh?
all of this, it's Simone Biles who actually apologizes. She had gone and said earlier that Riley Gaines' body was like a man's, which I think everyone would say that crossed a line. But there was no apology from Riley after making this comparison. In fact, she doubled down.
Right, I mean, and to be clear, like she has access now to every rung of the media ladder.
Yeah, to recap, the Daily Wire, Clay Travis, Charlie Kirk, Fox News, all day, every day. And I regret to inform you that Riley Gaines, like you, is also a podcaster.
I was worried that connection was also going to be made.
Podcast has ruined the business, even though I have one as well. It's ruined it. It's ruined everything. Podcasting. Everybody got a voice.
So Riley Gaines, like me, is in fact a podcaster, but she is also not just that. She is working for Fox News as a frequent contributor. She's a political figure. She's a speaker on college campuses at Turning Point USA, formerly hired as a contributor last year, the same year, by the way, 2024, where
if Riley Gaines can enter into politics, then what the fuck is the point of a political science major at this point? She doesn't know jack shit about politics. She's a fucking moron. I've seen her try to debate. She's an idiot.
she became the vice chair, Madison, of something called the Athletes for America Coalition at the America First Policy Institute. This resume, this ever-expanding resume, how enriching is it?
Okay, so 6 months ago when you sent me down this rabbit hole, this is absolutely what I wanted to find out. Like, how much money is Riley Gaines actually making? So I hear that on this podcast you like tax forms. I have plenty of them.
That is my deviance. My deviance, my fetish is tax forms.
Hey, I'm so sorry. So the Federal Election Commission, this is actually...
Why don't they hate woman bodybuilders? Because that doesn't make them money, right? They're born females.
Actually, a disclosure from the FEC. I think you might have copies there too.
Yes. Yes, I do. And what you wind up seeing in these documents is that over the last 3 years, from 2023 to 2025, speaker fees for Riley Gaines, as paid out by various state and local Republican committees, have more than octupled.
So in 2023, we have Riley Gaines making $3,000 at an appearance in Kentucky. In 2024,
we're seeing a $13,929 fee from the Republican Central.
$13,000 to talk? What the fuck? I want $13,000 to yap about nothing and just read a script, bro. Where do the Republicans get all this fucking money from, bro?
Committee in Nevada.
And then on page 45 of a filing from Harris County Republicans in Texas, this past June, $25,000.
Again, more than 8 times bigger than 2 years earlier, tracking right alongside the sharpening and perfecting of this whole trans inclusion as sexual assault.
Bro, I just need to lie and just like be extremely controversial. That way someone can give me a check to say some of the biggest bullshit to win elections. Oh my God, this system's so fucked. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
Argument from Riley Gaines in dozens upon dozens and dozens of appearances all over Fox News.
Riley Gaines joins us now.
Riley Gaines joins us right now with reaction.
Riley Gaines, she's America's #1 feminist as far as I'm concerned.
An ambassador at the Independent Women's Forum, Riley Gaines. Riley, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Riley Gaines is with us. Riley, how are you?
But that's not all, by the way, because Riley Gaines also got a job as a spokesperson at the Independent Women's Forum in 2022, which helped her get directly involved in politics. Riley Gaines has now testified or appeared with politicians in at least 21 states by our count so far.
I feel frustrated. I feel betrayed. I feel heartbroken. I feel demoralized that we have.
Yo, that money. She saw that $13,000 check. All right, this is what happened, right? At first, she was like, I'm just sharing my story. Someone gave me like couple thousand. Oh, cool. Let me just share what happened. And then this other person was like, hey, come on my show. I was like, sure. Here's 13,000. Oh, 13,000. What do you want me? All right, you want me to just share my? Add a little bit more flavor to the story, a little bit more cream fraiche to the story. You know what I'm saying? And then she goes like, Leah Thomas was 6'4", big man. It was kind of uncomfortable. Then she saw that $25,000, and she was like, you know what? Leah Thomas is a sexual predator. Oh my God, Leah Thomas did all this. She was looking at us. As the zeros get added, the story gets worse and worse. Yo, I ain't calling her a gold digger. You feel me? She made that bag. She made that biggity bag.
To be here.
And on top of that, there was the grand opening in 2023 now of the Riley Gaines Center, a center which was founded at something called the Leadership Institute.
Just let me know. Just let me know. Give me the script. I'll read it. Come on.
Which turns out to be a conservative nonprofit that has been recruiting and training right-wing activists for like 50 years. The mission of the Riley Gaines Center was very specific. It was to recruit other student athletes who had been, quote, harmed by zealots of transgender ideology.
Part of her job working for the Leadership Institute here is to go give out actual medals, Pablo, literal medals with the Leadership Institute logo on them to other girls and women who reject trans women in sports. Mini-me's of Riley Gaines, essentially.
And according to their tax force, Riley Gaines, director of the Riley Gaines Center, pocketed $126,523 within just 5 months of her center's founding.
What the fuck? $100,000 in 5 months, boy. Now we know why Riley Gaines became such a piece of shit. Because that piece of shit sells, boy. You just got to sacrifice a Leah Thomas to become a $100,000. She's probably a millionaire by now. It's crazy. Hey, anytime someone tells me what to talk about corruption, you can't spell corruption without that R. You feel me? You can't spell corruption without that big fucking R.
Raising this larger question of who exactly was funding this center named after a 23-year-old.
Oh, give me the juice.
So they're a nonprofit. They don't have to disclose their donors publicly. But by going and pulling...
No, we got to get rid of... All donors need to be exposed. All of them. Every single one of them. Remove that. Just shit. No, they really just shitting money for Riley.
Tax forms for other powerful conservative foundations. I was able to find one of these funders.
Why do conservatives have so much fucking money, boy? Democrats, get your fucking weight up. Why don't none of you guys have money? These motherfuckers have so much money.
And this one is the Dick and Betsy DeVos Family Foundation.
Betsy DeVos, of course, Donald Trump's first-term education secretary, who was also part of a very well-connected family.
Yeah, some of the most powerful funders, some of the biggest funders in Republican politics. We should say the sister of former Blackwater founder Eric Prince. You know, her name is DeVos because she married into the family that co-founded the health and beauty empire, Amway.
Which is also why I can very safely declare that the family that owns the Orlando Magic are also the DeVosses and also some of the many dollars behind the Riley Gaines Center.
And
we done with the Magic. We done with the Orlando Magic. Now that's actually crazy. The Republicans really have a funnel system of cash. We talked about it before, but I didn't realize how deep it goes. Like MAGA has their newscast platform that pushes bullshit consistently. That's way worse than Democrats with Fox News. Fox News is one of the most biased news sources I've ever seen in my goddamn fucking life. So they have Fox News. They had Turning Point USA. And then they could just find other people, send them money, and create whole fucking bullshit narratives on. And put Republicans into office to make themselves richer with tax cuts. Bro, I didn't realize how bad it is. I knew it was bad. But Republicans, Jesus fuck. Oh my God.
You can see on their text forum, Leadership Institute, $100,000 in 2023.
The main character, the star of the anti-trans athlete movement, this avatar for the MAGA Republican effort, you're saying that person, Riley Gaines, happens to be funded by billionaire NBA owners.
The Riley Gaines Center definitely was.
And so as we put these tax forms right alongside her appearances on Fox News, it is important to remind ourselves that this shit worked beyond even the whole Simone Biles thing, which was abhorrent in terms of its false equivalence. I just remember the effectiveness, the normalization of this whole conversation. There were the campaign ads, Madison, that I'm sure you remember in the middle of Major League Baseball playoff games that apparently helped turn the election, in which they declared very proudly,
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J.
It's crazy how this fucking worked too. It really just started from Riley Gaines making up shit. Oh my God, bro. Nah, I definitely gonna publish this as a video. I probably have to cut a few things because I fucking was filibustering about random shit, but it really started off from this bullshit. Billionaires paying Riley to lie. So billionaires paying Riley to lie to help Donald Trump get elected to get tax cuts. That is literally what happened. Billionaires paid Riley Gaines to lie to get tax cuts.
Trump, and I approve this message.
Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
There is polling saying that these ads did shift voters.
And the NCAA, meanwhile, they did also ban trans women from women's sports. This happened the day after Donald Trump signed that executive order in front of Riley Gaines wearing all white at the White House in the video we started this episode with.
Where he says, Trump has said it's a big reason that he won back the White House. And then he credited Riley.
And by the way, just to keep up the accounting here, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic committees effectively did the same thing this summer because of Donald Trump riding this wave of popular momentum. All of which is to say that as Coach Lars saw potential in Riley Gaines, right? Motivating her by claiming that she had a lack of talent. She proved that she was a prospect worth investing in. She has remade American public policy in her image. The movement that she is the face of works because her story, her storytelling is believed by so many parents and Americans who see this story through her eyes.
We've got the NCAA ban, we've got the Olympic ban, we've got these kinds of policy changes that, and this is a key point, could actually maybe be undone in the future pretty easily. If we get a new president, maybe there's a new executive order, maybe the U.S. Olympic Paralympic Committee changes its mind. So the conundrum for Riley Gaines right now is how do we make these policy changes, these trans sports bans permanent, or at least more permanent than Trump? How do you make them apply nationwide so that no trans girl, K-12, college, even blue states, New York, California, none of them can play on a girls' team? And how do you do that permanently? Use the courts.
A new lawsuit could have a big impact on who can and who can't compete in college sports.
Riley Gaines and 15 other female athletes just filed a lawsuit against the NCAA.
She says this development was due time and that the NCAA has been served.
Gaines v. NCAA. This big lawsuit that's now winding its way through the court system. Who is behind that? Who's funding that one?
I'm so sorry to say that it is time to listen to Riley Gaines' podcast.
Today's guest is Bill Bach. He was an NCAA official
His story is pretty incredible.
Because in this episode, Riley Gaines introduces us to someone who has been dodging my calls, her lawyer.
He's actually an experienced litigator. He has substantial experience with sports law and sports during drug testing. He was actually the general counsel of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency for 13 years. He's represented clients in high-profile investigations and litigation, including Lance Armstrong.
And after those 13 years at the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, actually not representing Lance Armstrong, taking down Lance Armstrong, this lawyer, Bill Bach, left his job in 2020 and got a new client, Donald Trump.
Of course.
This is when Trump was denying the results of the 2020 election.
I believe I remember Bill Bach, who also worked for the NCAA itself. He was on this committee that handed down punishments to schools that break.
What is this machine on the right, bro? This machine on the right is terrifying. It all is always like it's consistently connected. Of these people on the right, it all just leads into something very clear. They're doing whatever it takes to keep themselves rich. And they just found a new way to retain power. That is keeping Donald Trump in office, keeping Republicans in power. And they'll do whatever it takes to do it. Huh. It's actually crazy.
Break like NCAA rules and stuff. Before quitting in protest, because he wrote a giant op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in which he accused the NCAA of, quote, regressive, discriminatory, anti-woman policies, end quote. And it seems like the origin story for his position there in the pages of the Wall Street Journal was that Riley Gaines happened to tie Leah Thomas for 5th place in Atlanta at the NCAA championships.
The swimming race that started it all. And now he's working for her. Now she is his client. And P.S., he's not critiquing how the NCAA treats female athletes in other contexts. This is all about trans people.
The NCAA has imposed a radical anti-woman agenda on college sports, redefined women as a testosterone level, permitted men to compete.
It's really hard to kind of get all this information and not see how like evil these people are. These are just very bad people. But they have so much money. They have so much power. It's so much influence. Why is this motherfucker used to be part of the NCAA? What the fuck is going on?
On women's teams, destroyed female safe spaces in women's locker rooms by authorizing naked men possessing full male genitalia to disrobe in front of non-consenting college women.
And so as we continue to examine the grift that keeps on giving, Bill Bach's legal argument here in Gaines v. NCAA, which is filed in 2024, it does have to do with Title IX. This is the law from the 1970s that banned sex discrimination in American schools. Quote, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance, end quote.
Riley Gaines is the lead plaintiff in this lawsuit, but Bill Bach also filed on behalf of 15 more female athletes who all have complaints about trans people. And they say that letting Leah Thomas swim, but also letting any other trans athlete compete in the women's division violates Title IX.
Right. The way to get there is legally portray Riley Gaines as his victim and provide a roadmap for the permanent extinction of trans women, trans girls in K through 12, all the way up to college, in terms of their ability to participate in sports. And I just have to imagine here, hiring the guy who represented Donald Trump himself, like that cannot be cheap.
No, I have a tab in my spreadsheet also called Contributions to Icons. And this gets us to yet another nonprofit in the anti-trans movement. So ICONS is an acronym for the Independent Council on Women's Sports. And at the New York Times last year, they called it the, quote, preeminent organization in the trans sports ban movement, end quote. This nonprofit started with press conferences, but it pretty quickly pivoted to focusing on the legal arena. It exists pretty much exclusively to fund lawsuits in the name of Riley Gaines and Company. It's got a handful of them all pending in court, all making pretty much the same argument. And Icons is pretty interesting too. It was started by a former champion college swimmer at the University of Arizona and a swim mom, herself a former tennis player at Stanford, who got fired up about these issues because, can you guess?
I have to imagine a certain swim meet in Atlanta, Georgia.
The matchup heard around the world. So the daughter of the swim mom, the one of these Icons co-founders, she had actually lost to Leah Thomas a couple times that season. So they had gone head to head. They had encountered each other at competitions. And so if we look at these tax forms here, what we can see, this is the 2022 tax form 990 for the Independent Council on Women's Sports. This one says that Icons went from a $100,000 organization in 2022 to, we have this one here from 2024, $1 million organization.
Like 10 times bigger than it used to be in the span of 2 years.
Millionaires. What the fuck? What is going on?
Feels appropriate for what we've been discussing this whole time. How many other organizations like this are in this like nesting doll of like money sources?
There are so many of these groups. Icons has really broken through. And I think that that's because they are not just a rebranding of the same Heritage Foundation, conservative DC think tank. They're not a creature of that world so much as they are an outgrowth of people who are involved in women's sports, who care deeply about it, and who have gone through that process, that gateway drug, and landed on, this increasingly radicalized side of the transgender athlete debate. And it's not just the Alliance Defending Freedom, like classic players of the conservative social movement over the last 30 years in America.
I know. I miss the Cato.
Yeah, it seems like it. And this one, basically what she's saying, it's ton of, talk about it. But basically what she's saying, what makes this organization a little different is the fact that this is an organization made of actual people who are very much ingrained into this debate and have very strong feelings about it, versus just billionaires giving them random money. Like there's other organizations that do that. That's what makes them different.
Institute.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. Instead, the donor to Icons that apparently we know about is what?
So XXXY Athletics is a brand. A clothing brand.
I've been working with XXXY since they started, but it is surreal to now collaborate with them. I have my own line.
A clothing brand with women's chromosomes as the fucking brand is fucking stupid as fuck. What? Who's buying that shit? What? Why the fuck are you buying a clothing that has chromosomes as your fucking logo? What are we doing? That shit's ass, all right? That shit sucks. What are we doing? Bad people do love to spin reality. I'm with you there.
If you will, with them called the Be Bold collection. Expect some red, white, and blue.
All right, Be Bold is better, but XX, like what?
Lives, how we feel about the greatest nation in the world. And of course, proclaiming the message that women's sports are only for women.
Is it sick that I might actually wear something like this if it was a different context?
I was going to say, if you were in the market for a t-shirt that had the text of Title IX that we read before.
It does have the text of Title IX. I just noticed that. I wasn't really paying attention. I was looking at Riley's legs. I'm not going to lie. I'm a fucking degenerate man.
Emblazoned across the back, we have one candidate for your money.
This whole brand, if you couldn't tell from the ad, is built on arguing in this sort of glossy marketing language that trans women are men and that they don't belong in women's sports. It's the whole shtick. They have a lawsuit out there, a whole other one, saying that we have the right to misgender people. This is what this whole brand is built on. And they funnel their money to Icons for some of their merch.
I mean, they're all like these pretty creative instruments to funnel money towards, it turns out, this lawsuit, as well as the other similar lawsuits that Bill Bob.
The left needs to do better in building brands to circulate money in organizations and groups. They just do. They suck at it. The right is so good at it. Yeah, it takes a certain level of like corruption to be this good at it. But come on. Be a little bit more compy, right?
Seems to be filing. And so how is all that going?
Riley Gaines' lawsuit just had a court decision. The court threw out a lot of it, but it did preserve some of the claims against the NCAA, including the Title IX claim. But then at some point early next year, we have another couple of court cases that are going to be all over the news that we know about. And this is because the Supreme Court has agreed to hear 2 cases involving trans athletes. These ones starting from back in 2020 and 2021, the very beginning of this movement.
And the lawsuits are arguing that Title IX and the Constitution, as a related concern, they actually prohibit banning trans athletes. And these athletes, in this case, there's a cross-country runner, a middle schooler in West Virginia. There's a college student in Idaho, also a cross-country runner. So it's the other way. Riley Gaines is arguing Title IX requires banning trans athletes. These cases argue the opposite spin.
Right. Does Title IX require trans women to be banned from women's sports, or does it prohibit you from passing those bans because that's a kind of sex discrimination? We're going to get an answer to the question of whether these bans are forbidden, presumably next year when the Supreme Court decides these cases, probably by next summer. And, P.S.
I will definitely be covering that on the platform for sure. I do think it is a complex one. It is a complex one. It is tough. Again, this is a tough issue to deal with, regardless if it affects only a minority of people. But I feel like that distinction is still valuable.
Down in the lower courts, the circuit courts, they ruled in favor of the trans athletes. So we're going to find out if the Supreme Court agrees. And if they do, that could invalidate all of those state laws that Riley Gaines helped pass banning trans women from women's sports.
And so I just think of what Riley Gaines told the New York Times this summer in yet another interview that she gave. And she said, quote, "The gender ideology movement is a house of cards, and I believe it's lying on the sports issue. This will be the card that makes all of it crumble."
What she's saying is that sports, the fight over sports, is the key to getting anti-trans policies passed on all of these levels, getting court wins for her and for her allies that are going to have ramifications for trans people's rights. And if Title IX doesn't protect trans people from discrimination in education, that has implications for bathrooms, it has implications for school clubs, all sorts of issues around trans kids being able to go to school as themselves.
And so now we're just seeing the logic and the incentive structure become clear, which is to say that when it comes to why Riley Gaines might have been telling this story in this way, changing it over time, apparently exaggerating the story of how Leah Thomas inside that fateful bathroom/locker room had exposed her to male genitalia, allegedly, which he then went on to equate to, quote, some form of sexual assault. The reason that all of that matters, the fact-checking of that, is because it provides the framework for keeping trans people out of not just sports, but pretty much every space in American life.
There's a whole other lawsuit that we haven't talked about yet.
I at this point, I feel like I'm the person that needs to go for a swim.
I'm trying to see the grander vision behind all of this, right? This visceral hatred. Is it as simple as trying to preserve the sanctity of men and women to follow in these very stringent Christian beliefs? Or is there a bigger political play here? Banning them all across the board? It could be something as simple as like a moral stigma against trans people. I'm trying to think of the bigger political play here, and it's just like it really could just be discrimination against trans people. Weakening their presence. I mean, it did help them get votes. Do they believe that this will also help them get more and more support with the anti-trans sentiment? I don't know, man.
So we've now traced the arc from Riley Gaines growing up, being recruited by Coach Lars, to making it to the University of Kentucky, to then feeding into the right-wing outrage machine that has completely dominated the American political moment. And there is something else that we haven't even gotten to yet that is relevant to every part of the story.
So Riley's lawsuit and the other lawsuits over trans athletes, those make a lot of headlines, but there's another case that we haven't talked about. And this brings us back.
Imagine deeply caring about what strangers like to call themselves. It's just, who cares? That's my thing. I do think there's a valid argument in certain areas in this conversation in terms of what the trans identity means, but this is This is beyond that. This is just outright hatred of trans people.
To coach Lars Jorgensen. He was the one who, according to Riley's teammates, imposed punishment swims, ran them ragged. The thing is, it's not just them who have raised these kinds of complaints about Lars Jorgensen. In 2023, the year after Riley graduated, other swimmers at the University of Kentucky started complaining about Jorgensen to the athletic department, and they opened an investigation into whether Coach Lars was complying with NCAA rules. So I got records from that investigation from the university through a public records request. 29 swimmers and 7 coaches were interviewed, plus alumni wrote in. And they back up pretty much everything that my sources said about Jorgensen, from punishment swims to the eating disorders. When I reached out to the University of Kentucky for comment, they told me that Jorgensen was removed from the pool deck on May 1st of 2023 in the midst of this investigation. He was prohibited from interacting with student athletes and coaches.
And so Coach Lars, who again was one of Riley's best friends, even post-graduation, was she involved in any of this?
At this point, she is deep into her own transformation, deep into the never-ending news cycle. And so on the day that the news breaks on the Swimming World Insider website, SwimSwam, that this investigation was going on and Jorgensen had been put in leave, Riley was actually testifying to the Senate Judiciary Committee. She was bringing up the usual talking points about how having men in women's sports is a violation of women's safety, all that now familiar stuff.
That having men in women's sports is wrong and that it's unfair and it's a violation.
Okay, now I understand the Jorgensen part. She's an advocate for women, but when she has an individual that is directly harmful to women and their well-being, nothing comes out of her mouth. It's never been about protecting women. It's never been that.
Relation to, again, our privacy and rights to safety as women.
And a week after we learn about this investigation on SwimSwam, Jorgensen resigns. The University of Kentucky tells me they negotiated a settlement for a fraction of his contract value in exchange for him cooperating with their inquiry. And meanwhile, back on SwimSwam in the comment section, which is pretty lively, as I've learned.
I've heard of SwimSwam before. It is the place for argument, commentary, and it turns out tips in a larger investigation.
The stories about Jorgensen were not just about running swimmers ragged and the kinds of eating disorder pressures that we see throughout women's sports. It got even darker. And so we find out exactly how much darker in April 2024. And that's when 2 people on the swim team, both of them former members of the team who Jorgensen had then hired as assistant coaches, they filed another lawsuit alleging that Jorgensen sexually assaulted them. One of the swimmers who files this lawsuit, she alleges that Jorgensen forcibly raped her multiple times between 2019 and 2023, which includes Riley's time on the team. And it says that he would tell the alleged victim he would ruin her reputation if she told anyone. The other one says that in 2022, he groped and kissed her without consent. And their complaint also alleges that he raped a third assistant coach at his home after a Christmas party several years earlier. Lars Jorgensen did not respond to questions that I sent him. His lawyers didn't either. In court papers, he said that the sexual assault claims are not true.
What did the university itself have to say?
Yeah, they said that they were not aware of the most serious allegations until this lawsuit was filed. That's a quote. And they continue.
So Riley Gaines goes out of her way to make up shit about Leah Thomas being a sexual predator, but says nothing about her swim coach actually being a fucking sexual predator. It's never been, when it comes to the Republicans, it's never about helping people. It's never about helping people. Never. Never about helping people. Disingenuous, hypocrites.
And said, UK has consistently acted upon and investigated allegations when they were known and when complainants have opted to pursue allegations and participate in the investigative process, end quote. And they're saying this because the swimmers who filed the lawsuit say that the university had discouraged them from reporting their claims.
Right. And the university also is saying, quote, this has prompted an important conversation about what more we can do to ensure the health, safety, and well-being of all community members, end quote. And they then go on to list a series of reforms across campus. But the big question that we have worked our way around to from where we started and that climb up through conservative politics and the top of America itself, all the way to this lawsuit here, which, as described, is horrific, is what do we prioritize and who are we protecting when it comes to the question of what women's sports should be concerned about?
It's a shifting of the perspective from what you're hearing on Fox News. One of the assistant coaches who filed the lawsuit against Lars Jorgensen has since transitioned, female to male. And the lawsuit uses she, her pronouns to talk about the time period around the alleged assaults, which is why we're doing that too. But when the case was first filed, Jorgensen's lawyer at the time brought Riley into it. He said that the allegations had been fabricated to punish Coach Lars for supporting Riley Gaines. And that lawyer, Greg Anderson, told the Lexington Herald Leader, quote, "This all has to do with NCAA woke philosophy."
I mean, look, the question of are there men who should be considered predators around women's sports? We've mentioned a couple of them earlier. Larry Nassar being one famous example.
Yeah, these are like fairly common, unfortunately, common types of allegations. And, according to the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, which is the organization created by Congress as a nonprofit to investigate these types of allegations, coaches are the most common perpetrators of sexual contact also. And P.S., the U.S. Center for Safe Sport has been investigating this same case, some of these same allegations. And in early October, they ruled that Lars Jorgensen was banned from coaching for life.
And I just cannot help but remember that this is the coach that Riley Gaines called one of her best friends.
One of my best friends.
Riley Gaines created a whole career off of lying about Leah Thomas. Created an entire career for monetary gain. Pretending that she cares about protecting women. When there's an actual predator that she calls her best friend. It's so sick. It is so disgusting what the right is willing to do for political aim and monetary gain. It's so despicable. And then they try to go out of their way and frame everything. Oh, this is just politics. They're just woke. These people do some of the worst things ever, and then they try to pretend, oh, this is just woke. Give me a break, bro.
In her best-selling memoir that came out in May of 2024. And look, I get that this book was probably on the way back from the printer by then because the lawsuit, this was all filed in April of 2024. And I want to just be realistic about publishing timelines and all of that. But when we come to this question of who are the men we are concerned about in sports who have been abusive, allegedly, and predatory, allegedly, in these spaces that we should be worried about when it comes to our daughters, our girls, our female athletes, what has Riley Gaines said about Coach Lars and these allegations?
I found one tweet from a few days after the allegations became public. And it reads in part, quote, "I took the weekend to spend time with current and former University of Kentucky teammates. The general consensus is that we are disgusted, heartbroken, and ashamed to be affiliated with a program where anything like this could have been alleged to have happened. Lars was someone I trusted, loved, and respected. I would have gone to bat for him and defended him until the end. I feel entirely blindsided and betrayed." She goes on to write, "Regardless of the allegations, my stance is clear. Sexual predators should not be able to obtain or maintain a position of authority over anyone, much less a team of vulnerable, half-naked young women." End quote.
And I just can't help but just see her stance that she's alluding to there as her larger stance, as if.
So at the very least, it's clear that she did speak up against it. But I think this is what Pablo Torre is about to allude to. In a situation like this, you say one tweet about it. But for Leah Thomas, where you make up this entire narrative about what they did, you gain a career. You talk about it every single day. You commit into a lawsuit. Like your whole life is about this made up narrative. But for something like this, it's just a tweet. It's just a tweet. Okay.
The two things that we've now covered here, the experience she had with Leah Thomas and the revelations she says she has now learned in the spring of 2024 about one of her best friends, Coach Lars, who is now this alleged sexual predator, that this all can fit together quite neatly. And it's all been consistent this whole time, even though when it comes to the number of words she's devoted to one versus the other, that actually is a race that's not even close.
I have to say, she's a 25-year-old. She has this incredible public platform, but this is a lot for anyone to deal with when you have allegations against somebody close to you. At the same time, she has just been churning out all of this material, all of this content, all of this outrage about sexual abusers in sports in her framing of it, transgender women. That's the spectrum that she puts it on. So she has this platform. She has plenty to say on this kind of topic, but one tweet.
What has she said about Coach Lars since then?
Just 2 months ago on another podcast, she referred to him as a fantastic coach. There's been really very, very little.
And I just felt this, almost like this emptiness, right? There wasn't a lot of satisfaction in doing what I did. I had great friends, I had a fantastic coach.
And then we're in the Simone Biles news cycle, which happened after these revelations came out. And by the way, it's really hard to overlook the fact that in all of those podcasts, those multiple Fox News appearances, where she was comparing Larry Nassar's sexual abuse to her experience in the locker room with Leah Thomas, she's very clear, it seems, that, quote, what me and my teammates had to go through in terms of the trans athlete competition question was certainly sexual abuse.
Drawing into me, that is sexual abuse. What me and my teammates had to go through was certainly sexual abuse. Again,
that was on Stephen
A. Smith is a fucking tool, bro. All right, bro. Oh, I'm glad I watched this. I was about to end it. This I feel like it doesn't really change my stance, but it makes me more sympathetic to the trans position. That's one. And two, it outlines something very clear that I think I should have known. The right's willingness to create these type of narratives. They'll do anything. They'll throw any amount of money to do it.
A. Smith's podcast.
And I do want to say, the voice that you should be listening to on how this all feels, to hold these ideas simultaneously, is not mine, it's not Stephen A's, and it's not yours, Madison.
Right.
It does seem like this is why, in fact, you made sure to talk to her actual teammates.
Yeah, Trinity Ward, if you'll remember the teammate who went on the record with us, she had been so thrilled to be a part of the University of Kentucky swim program. But then Coach Lars changed her view of that. And she has so little respect for what Riley has spent her time doing since graduation.
I don't think that what Riley Gaines does deserves to be called advocacy. When we think of advocacy, we think of people that are campaigning, fighting for a better future. And normally the word that comes to mind when you think of advocacy is inclusion, not exclusion. If you told most people all you have to do is make hateful statements on the internet, post some ad brands, and you're going to have half the country worshiping you and hanging up your picture on their daughter's wall saying you're an American hero and you're going to never work a real job the rest of your life. I mean, most people, that's their dream. Like that is the easy way, in some ways, like really the easy way out. I can't think of anything else besides money and fame that would cause the dramatic transformation in Riley that I've seen. Because like I said, I never would have thought that this would happen. And I thought very highly of her before.
And so at the end here, when it comes to this question,
can't trust them gold diggers, man. Can't trust them.
Of like, how do you tell the story then of Riley Gaines in this context and this movement in this context and these allegations in this full context? Is there a summary that you can provide us that we can take with us just to remember like what's actually the real story here?
I think Trinity Ward deserves the last word here.
When I wear my UK swimming gear, I've had 3 times where somebody's approached me and asked me about Riley Gaines. And I've said, well, do you know about Lars Jorgensen?
And the answer is always no. And she says, quote, it's hard for me to care about Riley Gaines tying for 5th when my swim coach is accused of raping my teammates. And people shut up pretty quickly after that.
Yeah. Madison Pauly, thank you.
God damn, she cooked. Oh, Pablo Torre. just applause right there, bro. This was a very, very interesting story to see. Oh, well, it is late. And I'm glad I watched this, but there's no doubt that I spent a lot of time doing all of this. 3 hours. I've been streaming all day. But I do appreciate the people who came by, who came to watch the different things that I've been doing. Yeah, that was a fantastic quote at the end. I'm extremely glad I watched this. I think this kind of opens up my perspective even more so. I have a lot to edit before my night is over. At the very least, I should edit my podcast episode. But yeah. Riley Gaines is a piece of shit. Not much else to say beyond that. With that said, hope everybody enjoyed who was watching on all the different platforms that I'm streaming on. Trying to stream more consistently to have very, very good conversation. With that said, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one. Take care. Peace.